In the small town of Winterfield, nestled among hills and forests, there was a profound silence. But one evening, it was shattered by terrible news. Local businessman Victor Haywood was found dead in the town square. His body was discovered near the fountain, and all evidence pointed to murder. Detective Emily Brown, known for her persistence and attention to detail, was called to the crime scene. Haywood was an influential man, but his reputation had been tainted by rumors of corruption and illegal dealings. This investigation was going to be complicated. At the crime scene, Emily noticed several things. No signs of a struggle, a dark red stripe on the fountain's handle, and a note stuck to Victor's shirt. The note read, "You've paid for your sins." This suggested that the murder could have been an act of revenge. Emily began interviewing witnesses. The first was Peter, the owner of a nearby cafe. He said he had seen Victor talking to a woman but couldn't make out her face. Peter added that Haywood often associated with shady characters and could have made enemies. Next up was Ben, an old acquaintance of Victor. He confessed that they had long-standing disagreements. Ben had once been a jealous friend who lost everything because of Victor's financial schemes. He had a motive, but Emily felt something was missing. While Emily continued her investigation, another tragedy struck the town. The next day, the body of Laura, a woman Victor often hired to organize events, was found in her home. She had been murdered, and once again, the evidence pointed to premeditated murder. At the crime scene, Emily found the same dark red stripe as on Victor. This confirmed her suspicion that the two murders were connected. But how? Laura had no known conflicts with Victor, and her death was even more puzzling. Emily began to investigate Laura's connections to other townsfolk. She discovered that Laura kept a diary where she recorded her meetings and conversation. However, the diary was missing, and no one knew where it could be. The situation was heating up. Emily knew that time was working against her. She decided to talk to Peter and Ben again, hoping to find something that would help her with the investigation. But their stories didn't match, and each seemed more suspicious than the other. Emily turned to a forensic expert to analyze the evidence from the crime scenes. The expert noted that both murders had occurred at the same time, 10:30 p.m. This meant the killer was working according to a precise plan and possibly had an alibi. Meanwhile, Emily reviewed footage from the town's surveillance cameras. However, all of the footage from the time of the murders had been damaged. This added another layer of mystery. Someone was clearly trying to hide their involvement. In search of more clues, she remembered Laura's close friend, Kate, who might know more than she had shared. Emily decided to meet with her and asked her to recall all the details. Through tears, Kate revealed that Laura had recently mentioned someone threatening her. She didn't know who it was, but Laura had been scared. Kate also remembered that Laura often mentioned a man named Thomas, who seemed to have been her secret lover. Emily decided to find out who Thomas was. She began questioning residents and soon learned that he was a young man who worked at the local auto repair shop. Emily quickly went to the shop, where the owner, Mr. Gray, confirmed that Thomas had indeed worked there but had recently quit. Emily set out to find Thomas. She learned that he sometimes visited a bar on the outskirts of the town. When she arrived there, she spotted him sitting in the corner looking down. Emily approached and asked him about Laura. Thomas looked nervous, but eventually admitted that he and Laura had been in a relationship. He said they had argued shortly before her death. When Emily asked if he knew Victor, Thomas suddenly became cold. he replied that he wanted nothing to do with the businessman. Despite the apparent suspicions, Emily felt that Thomas wasn't the killer. She began analyzing all of the evidence she had. Both victims were connected to Victor, but now she had a new theory. Perhaps the real killer was someone from Victor's inner circle. Returning to the archives, Emily traced Victor's financial advances and discovered that he had taken out a large loan several years ago from an obscure financial company. All information about the company was classified, raising Emily's suspicions. She started looking for connections between the company and the town. Emily learned that the creditor was a man named Jonathan, who lived in North Haven and had a dubious reputation. She decided to meet with him and see if he was involved in the murders. When she arrived at his office, she noticed that he seemed nervous. Emily saw a dark red strip of fabric lying on his desk. During their conversation, Jonathan mentioned that Victor owed him a large sum of money, and if he didn't pay, the consequences could have been dire. Emily felt that Jonathan might be involved in the murders, but she had no proof. She returned to the station to get a warrant to search his office. However, by then, things took an unexpected turn. The next morning, Emily learned that Jonathan had been found dead in his office. There were no clues at the crime scene, making the case even more confusing. Emily realized she had little time left to catch the real killer. She continued reviewing the evidence and remembered Kate's words about Laura possibly threatening someone with exposure. Suddenly, it occurred to her that Victor had not only enemies but also friends who might have been aware of his shady dealings. Emily decided to return to Ben. She spoke with him again and noticed that he seemed more nervous. This time she told him about her findings and mentioned that Jonathan had also been killed. Ben's demeanor quickly changed and he started making excuses. Emily realized that Ben knew more than he was letting on. During the interrogation, she noticed his reaction to Laura's name. That was when she understood that all of the clues pointed to him. Back at the station, she reviewed the surveillance footage from the night Victor and Laura were killed. In one of the videos, she spotted the silhouette of a man who closely resembled Ben. Emily immediately requested his arrest. After Ben's arrest, he began to lose his composure. Emily spent hours with him trying to get a confession. In the end, under the weight of evidence and facts, he finally confessed. He revealed that he killed Victor in a fit of rage after learning that Victor planned to cheat him in a deal. Laura became a collateral victim when she tried to intervene and stop him. He hadn't intended to kill her, but she had been in the wrong place at the wrong time. She was the only person who could link him to Victor's murder. So Ben decided to get rid of her too, to cover his tracks. Emily listened to his confession with a cold restraint, hiding how shocked she was. Ben, on the other hand, looked bewildered. He hadn't expected things to spiral out of control and had believed he could get away with it. But when the situation slipped out of his grasp, his fears overwhelmed him. After Ben's confession, the case was handed over to the court. Emily had gathered enough evidence to ensure his conviction. But something inside her still didn't sit right. Although the perpetrator had been caught, she felt like she had missed something important. Later, while reviewing the case files, Emily noticed a small detail, the same dark red strip that had been found at both crime scenes. It turned out to belong to an expensive jacket Ben had never worn. This raised new suspicion. Had Ben acted alone, or did he have an accomplice? Could someone have been helping him cover up the evidence or even pushing him towards these murders? But for now, all the evidence pointed to Ben, and that question remained unanswered. Emily closed the case file, sighing with relief, but knowing deep down that the true motives and the full depth of the story might have been hidden deeper than she expected. The town of Winterfield slowly returned to its usual rhythm, but people would remember the events of those days for a long time. And Emily, though hailed as her hero, continued to doubt whether all the secrets had been revealed. Sometimes on quiet evenings, she would recall Ben's face, a confused, broken man who had stepped into the abyss, and she would wonder, what if there was someone more cunning and devious behind his crimes, someone still out there, free?